welcome everybody to Dominican Sisters of Springfield Flowcast. 3 months into our terms of service for the Dominican Sisters of Springfield, our new team is just going to discuss our approach to implementing the decision of the 2024 General Chapter and also try to give some of our thoughts on leadership and what's new for the Springfield Dominicans. And I'm Sister Mary Paul, the newly elected Prioress General for Springfield, and I'd like to introduce my Vicaress General. So Joanne, take it away.
I'm Sister Joanne Delahanty. Hello, everybody. We're all here together at the Mother House for a meeting and glad for this chance to connect with more people. I live in Chicago and work 1 day a week at a neighborhood clinic, and I believe I'll pass the baton to Sister Elise.
Thank you, Sister Joanne. I am Sister Elise Marie Ramirez, and I, too, am new on the team. And my local community is Sienna Vale, and Sienna Vale is the local community on Jubilee Farm. And I'm happy to be here today, and I am passing the baton to Kathleen.
And I'm Sister Kathleen Mulcahy. I also live in Chicago and do ministry at Bethany House of Hospitality, which is a shelter for young women who are seeking asylum in this country. That's besides participating in leadership, which I really love to do. Thank you.
And you can all see why I love this team. And for Sister Mary Paul, I basically have been an educator all my life, a superintendent of schools, a school principal, teacher, proud consultant for other dioceses, and really have found my passion in serving young people and in helping their families. So it's a wonderful thing now to be able to be a part of this Dominican family in a whole new different way, even though it's so unique for me. 3 months into this transition and elected leadership, I'm like still scratching my head just a little bit. A lot of acronyms, a lot of things to learn, a lot of new procedures to look at, and I have to kind of leave my world of teaching educators and business administrators and re-enter into the life, the dear and precious life of our own community, both here at Sacred Heart Convent and in visiting them on our mission. Joanne?
I am probably still appropriately called shell-shocked and feel like a sponge because there's so much that I need to take in and process and learn. I'm grateful and glad for the chance to still live in the neighborhood where we live in Chicago and also serve in the neighborhood clinic. I've been in the neighborhood there for 35 years, and it's become very important for my ongoing transformation spiritually and personally. I think what that does is it grounds me and helps me realize incarnating what we spoke about at chapter. And it also actually, I realize that even 3 months into it, I am impacted because how I do what I do, I look at through a different lens.
That makes so much sense, Joanne, when you say that about everything you just said. And that different lens, I think that's what you referred to also, Paul. It's a different lens in this ministry than any ministry that I've been in. I think a part of what keeps me grounded right now is the ground. Literally, I have the privilege of being at Sienna Vale on Jubilee Farm, and I was taking a walk the other night only because I had been at the desk all day and I hadn't moved my legs, and I know that's not good for my hips, etc. And so I just thought 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes. And I walked, and as I walked and my feet were touching the ground, well, in my shoes, but my feet are touching the ground, I saw a movement out of the corner of my eye. It was 5 deer. I wasn't that far from the house, but I was caught by that is something like what I'm feeling like in leadership. I'm kind of there, and don't laugh, you three, trying to be quiet, listen, and ready to run. But then being with my sisters, whether it's being with the three of you on the team, Zoom or in the council room, or being with the sister that's talking to me in the hallway or in the office, I'm grounded, just like I was on that path. Kind of a both and, I guess. I don't know, Kathleen, does that help you out?
It does. And I find my grounding in a different way um, at Bethany House, but it's certainly a way of helping us to incarnate the chapter statement, especially as we talk about interculturality. And that's something that has always been my entire life very, very important to me. So living and sharing life among 15 or so women from 12 different countries is my grounding. And I'm very grateful to be able to do that with this role of leadership because it stretches me. It calls for a lot of balance on learning that. As we are 3 months in, I am still very much in the juggling act and drop a few balls now and then as I learn to juggle. But it is a very great privilege to feel a part of this general chapter direction that calls us to collaborate widely and deeply with people in their lives, in their everyday. And that's true with the sisters, among us, but that's true with everyone that we meet from day to day. And it's a very rich and challenging proposition for which I'm very grateful.
And thank you, Kathleen. And I think everybody who's listening can probably hear the diversity in this team, the richness of experience that's being brought to bear on this direction statement. And what kind of filling my heart these days is just this desire to continue to set that direction, to try to give it some shape and some form, to keep doing it as our direction statement says over and over, together, 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 to find ways to not only do but image and communicate and reignite this idea of our participative governments, our shared ministry, our Dominican fire, if you will. And I'm finding this fire, as St. Catherine of Siena would say, spreading the earth. As I look at our missions, and as I even visit our ill and infirm, there's fire there, there's grace there, and finding that kind of joy that the joyful friar St. Dominic invited us to has been a very different experience for me personally. But I hope to also bring some of that, I don't want to say more businessy, but it is lenses to just some of the things that we're trying to do so that all of our goodness can be incarnated in sometimes messy ways, but I hope that as powerful ways as we're able to do it together. And I have been so grateful for the working groups and the committees and people who have volunteered to be our voices and to be engaged with us as we deepen this direction. We're just babies. We're only a quarter of the year into this, so we're begging everybody to be patient. But I think we're at least trying to break open these processes as much as we can to really keep our boots on the ground. And as Elise said, our feet on the ground. And both Joanne and Kathleen, that idea of being present in those communities that keeps grounding us. So, what fills my heart this day is hope and an energy to try to structure things. So, I think I felt this on this team, haven't I? Yes, Kathleen.
I would say what fills my heart during this time most is gratitude. Gratitude for this team, for each of you that we're working with. Gratitude to you, especially Mary Paul, with your business sense that kind of keeps us on track or sets us on a track. But also gratitude to all the sisters for the inspiration that they are daily. Leadership gives us an opportunity to interact with the sisters a little bit more, a little bit in a different way, and see the breadth of the ministry that is happening here as we interact with one another and as we interact with all those we come into contact with each day. And for me, that inspires profound gratitude in my heart. Just seeing what God allows us to do from day to day, where we are drawn to be involved. That's a privilege, a tremendous privilege.
I'll jump in there, Kathleen, because I feel great appreciation. My heart and days are filled with, to use Elisa's metaphor, with standing in all the various places where the sisters are, no matter where that is, and attending, receiving what it is. It's a cause of great appreciation for who we are together in the many different ways, as many as there are of us, that we actually have that played out. It's an exciting, anxiety-producing, challenging, difficult, energizing time for church and for religious life. And so the other thing that fills my heart these days is a different way of paying attention to one another as we move forward, always with the mission in mind and heart, and trusting each other and believing that our future will be blessed.
And a part of what fills my heart, Joanne, is what you just said, is believing that together we are not only reimagining a future of promise and hope, but becoming right now that promise and hope. And for myself, I've had to go back to very basic book that I found years ago, and it's some business book. So Paul, I bet you're very familiar with it. It's Marshall Goldsmith. And okay, and his book is the one I'm talking about. It's called Triggers, and the reason is because it helps me remember what gets me set off. What pushes my buttons. And so, if I want to be imagining promise and hope, how do I hold myself responsible to receive whatever's triggering me to be an invitation to become that promise and hope? And so part of what fills my heart is the concern for this world. I mean, my heart, I just can't imagine a cell phone exploding, or like the people in Chad who just named their tribe and they're killed on. Where does that come from? And our lives as Dominican women, we offer another way. So I'm learning that together we are doing something that matters when we hold that imagination of a future that's right now. And that's wonderful about our Christian identity, right? That the time is now and yet to come. So it fills my heart, promise and hope. And how can Elise be present in it? And how can we, like you said, remember this is mission. We are sent for others. Yeah.
Elise, thank you. That's so very powerful. And to hear you quote a business book, okay, I'm all right. Then it's free. It's free game for me. I recommend Bowman and Deal's Reframing Organizations, because there's 4 frames that we can look at. We can look at a structural frame, a human resource frame, a symbolic frame, and a political frame. And I would challenge us that if you don't have all 4 frames kind of clicking, then we don't we're not able to move forward. Even the
Sure.
best of organizations and the most centered of organizations. So I just have to keep begging myself, be patient, be patient. God unfolds things. There will be fire on the earth. It took Dominic a while to build this order. You don't have to you give your all at once, but maybe we do in getting started. So as I look at this, I'm going, there are a lot of moving parts, right? But at heart, it is really simple. It is putting yourself at the service of every person whose face comes before you and acknowledging their dignity. Isn't the answer maybe the simplest? The answer is found in love. The answer is found in that personal relationship and compassion that I think our chapter really talked about. The answer is found in calling everyone to be the Christ face that they can be.
And
Catherine?
I think our chapter statement is a beautiful blend of those frames that you mentioned. It does have the structural elements there, but it also has the very human elements that call us together to be the the hope that we imagine for the future. And I'm often reminded of that quote from, is it Gandhi? Be the change you want to see in the world. And that's where I see us called to put flesh on what it is we want to do in all of those areas.
And I'm wondering what people will think about, what we could hear about in the near future from the council as we kind of are summing this up. Is there, I'd love to hear this from you because we really haven't addressed that question. So, um, I think we're planning for the future all the time and structuring things as they go, and have set our internal deadlines. But I think we've tried to keep the community in the loop, and I hope we can be better even at keeping the general public in the loop. But that's a goal for us, just to be as transparent as we can be within our own context. And this team has tried to do that.
I'm thinking, thank you, Paul. As I listen to you, I'm thinking to myself, um, one one goal um, that I find myself attracted to, maybe called into, maybe that's the word. Um, there's this New Zealand author, Sylvia Purdy. She's a minister, and something that she talks about. Uh, she's white, but she's done a lot of connecting with the indigenous persons in New Zealand. And she talks about how the spaces we're in all the time are are can become spaces for decolonization. And it strikes me because when we make a commitment, as we have as a congregation, to really embrace interculturality together, it it how do we do the things we always do as a space for undoing what isn't helpful for the whole? Does that make sense? But I can minister with a different lens toward the question of what undoes that and how's an invitation to something different. That will be the crux of interculturality, I think, for myself. So it's that kind of thing that's personal, but at the same time, it's bigger because you're asking those questions together. I don't know if that makes sense, y'all, but
It does, y'all. Thanks, Elise. Joanne's always a ponderer, but we wait because it's the words of it's pearls of wisdom. So go ahead, Joanne. I can tell.
Well, what can listeners look forward to hearing more about? Certainly, the committees and working groups are pitching us in directions um, that are inviting us to reimagine and move forward. And it's a very practical, while reimagining is the word, I see the word dream nuanced differently. So I feel that it's more correct to say we're reimagining a future rather than we're dreaming about it, because there's accountability in us and for us. First of all, intra community with one another, we have to begin and continue to have very important, sometimes difficult, but visionary conversations. And then we're also connecting outside of ourselves with other Dominican congregations and other women religious, even beyond our country. So I think our sense of place is not a bubble and can't be anymore. And that requires a standing on tiptoe constantly, which begins in our spirits and hearts. So I really feel very upheld by the community, by the sisters here, which allows me to stand on tiptoe more often than not. There's a great trust in them for us, and I want to honor that trust with how we are as a team. Far more than just I want to personally honor their trust. I want all of us to honor that, because I think of us more primarily than I default to thinking about myself. And maybe that's the first step to leadership.
Very powerful, Joanne. Thank you. And I want to just chime in. It's from everybody who writes the random note. It's the ability to have a simple phone call. It's the cookies delivered by somebody who just had cookies. There's just small kindnesses that really are the face of God for us in leadership. And there's also those powerful directions and powerful movements. So it's finding that balance of what's tremendously intrapersonal and yet what's calling us to a much deeper global awareness around larger issues. I don't see them as separate. I see them as the same unifying act of love toward one another. And I think that's helpful for me.
I see it as a movement toward ever greater wholeness, that we are becoming together more complete than we could ever be individually or alone. And that's as Dominicans come together, as we come together in the parishes where we minister, as we come together to collaborate in any kind of projects. There's just a deeper and deeper sense of our wholeness as a global community. There's a song I love that sings about the blue boat home, and that blue boat home is our earth, and that we are all in this blue boat together, traveling through a universe that provides both light and darkness, and we need both in our lives. But we're on this journey all together with so many people, some of whom we know and some of whom we don't. As we ask the question about what can listeners look forward to hearing, that depends a lot on who our listeners are. And I don't know well who's going to be hearing this. But my hope is that you will hear about collaborative efforts and feel invited to join with us in those efforts more and more deeply as these years of our leadership continue.
Oh, thanks. One thing the listeners can look forward to is the fact that, isn't this something? You hear the four of us talking to each other in this way? That is such a gift. And it's important that all of our listeners find the places where they can have the conversations that inspire in you your own desire and recommitment, that you will contribute to this wholeness. Yes, Kathleen, this wholeness and this place of service, Joanne, that you spoke of, that becomes the us and the we. So, yeah, thanks, you three.
And thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
Final thoughts on this flow cast as it flowed, a river of life flowing through this song. Just to be sure that we can at least end with giggles as we normally try to do, and with prayer, and I think the theme I hope everybody hears is the theme of gratitude, because that is the theme of grace, and grace is love, is God, It's the whole idea of that life flow through. So we've been grateful. I know every day Father Bob Kelly at the Mother House prays for the Dominican leadership team. We're right up there with the bishop, kind of. And I laugh, but then I'm humbled, because I know that we are sustained by prayer, and we are sustained by our prior experience, and by the community, and by the extended communities and relationships that we have, and by our families. And so I am deeply deeply grateful to this team, and to the Dominican sisters. I won't say for the opportunity to serve, because too soon, too soon. Check back in a year, and we'll find out. But team, final thoughts before we leave? All righty.
Thank you.
Thumbs up. Thank you for flowing with us. God bless you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.